Hello, Internet! Christmas time is almost here. The snow is falling, and it's a perfect time to sit back, settle down, and play something cozy. But what to play? Perhaps a simple minigame collection from childhood, a festive platformer, or maybe a friendly RPG where nobody has to die.
Hey, Toby!
This is Toby Fox. He grew up with Earthbound to such an extent that he learned how to read from it, and spent quite a bit of time in the community learning how to make games. The earliest images of Undertale appeared under the guise of an Earthbound ROM hack called Underbound 2, but it eventually received a proper reveal with the Kickstarter in 2013. Presented as a deconstruction of the typical RPG, where you could choose to spare and befriend the monsters you encountered rather than fighting them, the funding goal was achieved tenfold, and the game was released just a couple years later. It actually took me a little while to play the game for myself, but the massive amount of popularity it received made absolutely sure I was aware of it regardless. Once I did, it immediately became one of my favorites, and it's an experience I'd like to share with you for this holiday season. The premise is fairly basic. Monsters have been sealed underground by humans, and you play as a human child who falls into this underground world with the goal of traversing it until you reach the very end, where the king of all monsters resides. Monsters in an RPG are usually simple enemies to be fought and defeated in order to boost stats. And while you can treat the monsters in Undertale like that, what sets them apart is the way they're presented. They're not just random encounters, they're characters with personality and ambitions that populate the entirety of the underground. One of the first characters you meet is Toriel, a very motherly figure. Heck, you can even refer to her as Mom. A lot of mother characters in RPGs are simply there to wish the player character good luck on their journey, but Toriel is much more protective of you, also deconstructing the idea of a tutorial character, as she literally holds your hand through the early areas of the ruins. Not only that, but she seems to have disdain for the other monsters around her. As it turns out, you're not the first human child to fall into the underground, and the others have all fallen at the hands of the monsters outside the ruins, with Toriel trying her hardest to prevent the cycle from repeating. And this is true for every major character in the game. Sans and Papyrus are introduced as a simple comedic duo of polar opposites, only to be revealed as much more multi-dimensional characters as you spend time with them. Undyne's threatening and intense front is only one side of a person who is able to see what makes her friends special and wants the best for them. Alphys has a shy demeanor that hides an intense self-hatred and regret for her past experiments, that she gains the courage to face after receiving affirmation from her friends. Even the smaller and simpler characters are extremely entertaining and contribute a lot, especially in terms of building up the game's world. There are so many little moving parts that appear and reappear throughout the story, and the music is no different, containing various different leitmotifs. All the different songs and environments work together to make a really cozy atmosphere, the kind of game you'd play with some Christmas cookies by the fireside while snow falls just outside the window. One interesting little thing I noticed was that the ruins looks very simplistic, but as you progress through the underground, the environments get more and more detailed, almost like the creators were learning more and more about game design as they went along. Another thing that really makes the world feel alive is just how much it reacts to your actions. Even without killing any of the monsters, there are so many things you can change and affect, from supporting small businesses to providing artistic inspiration. But what really fascinates me about this game is how it subverts expectations. Usually it's for comedic or meta purposes, but it's also used to create some really unsettling moments. This is Flowey, the first character you find in the game. At first he puts on a friendly facade, but if you let your guard down, he'll pounce, seeing no value in sparing and befriending the monsters of the underground. You can catch him following you during the game, and once you wear down King Asgore, he promises to take care of you in the underground, as he once had children he lost, only for Flowey to kill him right in front of you and absorb the human souls that the monsters worked for decades to obtain, his face distorting with that sadistic laugh as the game suddenly closes itself. Opening the game again, something is wrong. Very, very wrong. The save file is suddenly erased and destroyed, and Flowey appears as this horrifying monstrosity on multiple levels. Battles in the game are usually turn-based with simple black and white pixel art, but Photoshop Flowey over here is composed of multiple photorealistic images that combine to create this visceral nightmare creature that relentlessly attacks you with a barrage of deadly and barely comprehensible attacks. The closest you can get to a moment of peace is when one of the human souls interrupts and attacks with the same weapons you can pick up throughout the underground. Once you call out for help from all of them, they break free and turn on Flowey, finally causing him to lose control of this world. One of the most unsettling areas of the game is the True Lab, only accessible in the True Pacifist route. After a little date with Alphys where she reconciles with Undyne and learns to accept herself a little more, and I had a little too much fun with the dialogue options, she ends up disappearing into an area of her laboratory we've never seen before. Alphys' lab is usually filled with bright colors and a quirky, bouncy theme song, but this area is dark and desolate with a version of the song in a minor key that samples instruments from one of the final areas of Earthbound. The walls are lined with screens containing journal entries from Alphys, detailing how Asgore asked her to find a way to break the barrier without 7 human souls, and she found a way to extract determination from the souls they already had and inject it into the monsters that were near death, with catastrophic consequences. Also, she created Flowey. Whoops. The results of the experiments are encountered in surreal ways, and their bodies are melted and fused together. The menu text is broken and distorted, the attacks are chaotic and unhinged, and the battle theme for the majority of the encounters resembles an incomplete version of the typical enemy approaching theme, once again sampling the final area from Earthbound, with the breathing also used for the barrier. There are 2 slow and dread-inducing encounters with very basic-looking beings, an extremely erratic fight with the dog amalgamate, and an absolutely heartbreaking encounter with what appears to be the mother of a monster in Snowdin known as Snowdrake. There's one room off to the side with a TV and a large amount of VHS tapes. The first one features Toriel and Asgore back when they were still together, but the other ones include a character we hear all the way back in Waterfall, but haven't yet seen, talking to the fallen human we named at the beginning? These turn out to be the children of Toriel and Asgore, Prince Asriel, and the first human to fall into the underground, widely known as Kara. While the two had a very strong bond, Kara had a lot of emotional baggage and a deep hatred for their own kind, and an incident with buttercup flowers led Asriel to absorb their soul and come to the surface to gather 6 human souls. However, Asriel refused, leading to the death of not only Kara, but him as well. But he came back eventually. With the power of every soul in the underground, Flowey returns to his original form for an incredible cinematic final boss. We hold on to our hopes and dreams, save our friends, and finally redeem Asriel, who is at last able to move on from his past with Kara, thanks to the final fallen human, Frisk. This game is just absolutely beautiful and offers so much content for a seemingly small game. Even if you're like me and can't bring yourself to ever actually bring harm to the monsters, no 2 playthroughs will ever be the same. And that's because of one little feature I've held off from talking about until now. After the first chase with Undyne, I walked back across the wooden path and came across this grayscale version of Monster Kid, a character that accompanied me through much of Waterfall. When talking to them, they said, and when I came back later, they were nowhere to be found. This encounter is one of many linked to a hidden variable called the fun value, a random number from 1 to 100 selected when you start a new game. There could be a slightly different Monster Kid's word search, calls from Sans, Alphys, and someone who accidentally called the wrong number, and this clam girl who suggests you meet her neighbor's daughter, Susie. But the most recognizable are the ones alluding to Dr. W.D. Gaster, the royal scientist who preceded Alphys. He was a brilliant man who built the core that powers the underground, but one day his life was tragically cut short when his experiments went wrong and he fell into his own creation, vanishing and shattering across time and space. This mysterious man behind a gray door is widely believed to be him, but it's likely just a piece of him, like the one this first follower holds. Out of all the unsolved mysteries left in Undertale, Gaster remains the most prevalent. We've been trying to figure out what his deal is for years, slowly unearthing something we were never meant to. We called out into the void, and the void called back.